Hey everyone, this is Oscar from Underdog, and this is a video for those of you who get stuck in the loop, famously known as the 8-bar loop, right? When people compose, often they compose some kind of loop, and then once they have a few elements going on that kind of work, they kind of get stuck because as a beginner, you don't necessarily have an intuition on how to turn that loop into a musical story. So let me show you one very quick workflow approach and then a mindset switch that will help you never get stuck in the 8-bar loop again, hopefully. Let me jump straight into the DAW so I can show you. Here I have a loop and it is 16 bars. Contrary to what I said of 18 bars, it's 16 bars, and let me play it. Solid. That's 8 bars. And you'll notice at the end I've got a little turnaround here. You know, where I just cut the beat for a second. Okay, solid. Solid groove, right? It's got something going on in the lows. It's got some percussive patterns in the mids. It's not bad. As the start of a song, I quite like this. However, I see a lot of people getting stuck at this point. And so, if you are getting stuck at this point, let me show you the next step. The next step is that you duplicate what you've got 2 times. So let me take this entire section and I do Command-Shift-D, which duplicates time, right? It just copies everything that I've done, and I'm going to do it twice. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So now what you see is the start, let's just call that number 1, the middle, let's call that number 2, and the end, let's call that number 3. And they're identical, right? Right now they're identical. And so what you're going to do in the second iteration of this loop is you're going to remove everything that is low-end rhythm and maybe your bass, right? So the idea is that what we're creating here is a little microscopic world of tension and release. Because in music, the thing that keeps the story propulsing forward is tension and release. And so that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to say, okay, we've created a very stable loop in terms of energy level. It's always the same. How can I now build up tension and release that tension? And so the words that you're going to hear a lot of people say are breaks and drops, right? I mean, that's kind of a terminology that's come in. You don't really have to do breaks and drops in the sense of like a dubstep or something sense. It's just that you want to start creating tension and then releasing that tension. And so this is how you're going to do it. And so you just hit play and you listen to what this does to you now. And you say, okay, there's some tension there. Now let's move from this mindset to the next mindset, which is what we're trying to create is a musical moment. One musical moment of release that we're going to try to create to be as satisfying as possible. And it's going to be right here. Here on the 3, this is going to be the moment of the biggest payoff of our song, the moment that people will remember our song for. And so it's very useful for us to think about, okay, how can we make this, the beat coming back here, as exciting as possible? And so we have to take away elements in advance and then give them all back on this moment. Create things like risers, either tonal or white noise risers, maybe some snare rolls like we did in the video last week, or even something really elaborate like a trilogy break that you can see in this video. But whatever we do, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating anticipation in this moment to release on this moment, okay? And that's going to be sort of our laboratory to say that if we can get this to work, then we have a track that really has storytelling potential. Then all we have to do is create a long intro to build up to that moment and a long outro to break down from that moment. But if our moment of most musical tension and release is good, then we have a memorable track. So I mentioned a few techniques already. You can have the tonal riser, the atonal riser, the snare rolls, the trilogy breaks. These are already techniques that you can go away with, but I want to show you one more technique, which is the reversed reverb. And that's really quite a simple technique, but it's so powerful that you should really just get comfortable with it. And the idea is that you take any sound, put an enormous reverb on it, freeze that, flatten it, and reverse it, and then play that almost like a riser, but it doesn't really rise anywhere. It just kind of stays. It goes from silence to very loud, and it fills up the frequency spectrum to create contrast at the moment of transition. And that's going to create that beautiful release. So for example, let's take a random sound like this. That's a perfect example, okay? I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to just take a single one of these. All I want is a single clap. And I'm going to put my favorite reverb on there, maybe just simply a Valhalla Room. And I'm going to set the decay time to something ridiculous. And I do mean ridiculous. I mean like 90 seconds. Yeah, absolutely. Put it at 100% too. It doesn't matter. You can try different algorithms, but I'm so confident in this that I'm just going to go with the basic one. And I'm going to hit freeze track and flatten track. And what it's created is this really long reverb wash, right? And so the idea is that you can just take away the initial transient part. It doesn't matter, because what we want is this gradual buildup. We're going to just double click here and hit reverse. R on your keyboard will do the same thing. It'll take a while, but once it works, you can see that it builds up to something there. Now we just make that louder so we can really see it. And we place it wherever we want to build up tension. Like imagine here, let's snip off the end here, bring down the volume, and let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, this is working, see? Excitement, tension, and because it's gone, suddenly tension is resolved. So soloed it sounds like this. It's not much, it's almost like white noise, almost. But the point is that it's filling up the whole frequency spectrum with sound. And that's creating contrast here to create a stronger musical impact during the drop. If you wanted to turn this into like a white noise riser, you really could by just putting a bandpass filter on there and going like this. Automating it to be however you want. But you don't need to do that. Just a straight up reversed reverb is so powerful. And so the main takeaway is duplicate your loop twice. In the middle section, take away everything that's like warm bass, everything that has a big impact, and start using that as a microcosmos to develop a break and then build up tension towards the drop. And that's your next mindset switch, which is that you're no longer creating a loop, you are now creating a moment. You want that drop to be the maximum tension and release possible. You want that moment to feel the best when the tension and release resolves itself. And so now you're doing musical storytelling and you're no longer stuck in the loop. You're welcome. If you're a beginner looking to learn electronic music, go check out my Foundations of Electronic Music course. It's a start to finish course that teaches you in a structural way how to make electronic music. Come show us on the Discord channel what you did with this. Go follow my Torque project to see when this track will finally be released. And until next time, stay producing, be good to one another, and take care. Bye-bye. Of course, my flatmate comes in at the most embarrassing moment when I'm like dancing.